Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Some of us are old enough to remember when those awful terrorist attacks occurred in the United States of America on September 11, 2001. The TV and some of their guests and hosts were asking these questions: why did they do it? And they provided the answer: because they hate our freedom, or our way of life, and something like that. Now, that was from my perspective, I think it was a very misleading way of answering the question, which was more complex than that. But that required knowledge and a little bit effort to look in the past and look at the complexity of whatever happens in the area where those guys came from originally. But it's okay, it was a fast answer. Ingested immediately by most people who did not put that effort or did not dare to look into it. And we call those guys obviously bad for doing a bad thing, which is accurate. The problem is, what do you do, or at least I've seen the tendency here in the United States of America, of calling something that was done that we don't like as immediately being bad. Just because we don't like it, it doesn't mean that it's bad. We don't like it. It's bad, and the people associating with that bad thing are bad people. And that is a very infantile way of analyzing a situation, or to distributing values and assessments. So what we have here, we have a problem where people and countries regarding the events in Ukraine support the other side. And again, it's going to be the question, why? And probably the answer that we will be provided with is because they're bad people, because Russians attacked unprovoked the victim country of Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are defending their territory against the evil Russians. That's how the story goes. That's how they hate our freedom thing. So whomever tries to, or shows sympathy or shows support from the other side, or asks questions about the narrative fed to us, is called in a certain way that will try to destroy that person's character and all that. That's how the story goes. Now we have some developments here in Belarus and Russia. We have an article here claiming that, or this reporting, that Cuban citizens are fighting for Russia in Ukraine. So there is, how is that possible? Remember, why would they do this to us? Why would they do this when they know that Russia is, the evil empire? That's point one. And point two is even worse than point one. It is Cuban military troops are trained in Belarus, or will be trained in Belarus. So they are with the bad side. That means they are bad. Now, obviously, the fast answer would be Cubans are bad because they associate them with bad people. And that's it. And we are good, and they don't associate with us, don't support our efforts in Ukraine. Must be bad. But again, people have to put some effort in learning history, looking and getting the information that history provides us, and think, why would some Cubans really associate themselves with the evil ones against the United States, which is not me, the good ones? Well, if you look at the history, some people might find a lot of reasons. That's why things are a bit more complex than they are bad people. So let's read this article here, coming from Miami Herald, and it's from May 27th, 2023. Why Cuban migrants are fighting for Russia in Ukraine as Belarus trains Cuban soldiers. Remember, this answer is going to be a flimsy answer, probably. I just skimmed through it and I saw a few points. I said, oh, okay, it sounds very familiar with something that occurred 22 years ago Cuban migrants living in Russia have joined the country's military to fight with the troops invading Ukraine, after Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a bill to grant citizenship to those who enlist, Russian media reported. So it's only because they will get the citizenship in an evil country. That's so far the answer that is a little bit camouflaged. They are migrants, so they could stay over there. Why do you need a citizenship? I mean, why do you identify yourself with those guys, right? But anyway, that question is too deep for these infantiles, so let's move on. Local news outlets from the Ryazan region in central Russia reported that, and I'm quoting, several Cubans were already taken Wednesday to the zone of the special military operation, Russian media euphemism to refer to the war zone in Ukraine, after signing a one-year contract to join the Russian military. Ryazan Gazette said the Cubans and others who signed the contract to fight in Ukraine will receive one-time payments in rubles equivalent to $2,433 from the federal budget and another $2,500 from Ryazan now? I thought it was Ryazan, but anyway, Ryazan regional budget. Very interesting, right? They will also receive a monthly salary of $2,545, the report adds. So all this right here, I think, is mentioned by beautiful Miami Herald to tell us that they're basically mercenaries. They just go there for perks, not for, which could be very much so. But my question is, isn't the same thing for people in the United States joining the US military? Oh, no? Oh, my bad. I read an article, it was about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I didn't think it was interesting because I knew about it for about 20 years or so that this occurred. So if you if you are a permanent resident in the United States of America and you join the military, you don't have to wait 5 years until you get your citizenship. I think they will give it to you in about 2 years. That's how it was 20 years ago. I know that for a fact. And then I also know that if you go and join the military, you get a lot of perks. And I'm talking about joining the military. I'm not talking about going and fighting in Ukraine. Joining the military, you would get some perks that the college will be paid for you. So it's about, depending on the college, about, I know it was about $55,000 about 15 years ago or so, for a fact. They get some pension. They get some other perks. So they're talking about here 2,500 salary and this and that. Well, I wonder where they copied that from. Anyway, it's always, it's that little biblical, say or expression or thought, look first in your eyes and then look in my eye. So anyway, let's move on here and see. In a separate announcement last week, Belarus Deputy Defense Minister for International Military Cooperation Valery Revenko said he discussed the training of Cuban military personnel in Belarus with Cuban officials, including Cuba's military attaché in Russia and Belarus, Colonel Monica Milian Gomez. Most, and I'm quoting, most attention was given to the training of Cuban military personnel in the Republic of Belarus and the promotion of military cooperation between the two countries in a planned manner, end quote, Revenko said in a tweet in Spanish. Okay. According to a brief statement by Belarus Ministry of Defense, the meeting took place on the sidelines of a military weapons exhibition. Okay, so what we know for a fact is that some Cuban, according to these guys, Cuban migrants in Russia, they decide to join the Russian military. They say only Miami Herald just makes the connection, must be only because somehow those guys want to be Russian citizens, which is a very bad thing, but nevertheless they're so that they will do it, and for the money, $2,500 and so on, as a salary. So it's nothing patriotic or anything, it's just the money and the perks. But I don't understand, why would you want to be a Russian citizen if Russia is so bad. Again, certain things we don't understand, you know what I mean? Or because they hate us, all right, or our freedoms. This is how I think the story would go. I suspect for some of this, and it's when you suspect doesn't mean that it's there, but, you know. But let our imagination fly for about 37 seconds. I think a lot of these Cubans have a little bit of hatred for certain kind of countries that really their country of origin for decades, imposing embargoes and other things that kept the country, I don't think it's very poor, just to put it mildly, as using euphemism, not rich, okay, which is actually an antonym, because it's not rich, it's poor. So I think a lot of people, like for instance in Eastern Europe, some older people have a little resentment towards the free world that allowed Stalin and Soviet Union, or Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union together with Russia, to grab parts of Eastern Europe and incorporate it in a communist BS without saying, no, you can't do that, Stalin, you're a criminal and your ideology is a no good. So they made a deal with him, and look what happened. And you might say, well, wait a second, isn't that what we're doing right now to Putin? You know, we don't want to make a deal with him. Well, it's a very, very long stretch, and I suggest that person should take a mirror and look into it. Maybe not directly responsible, but maybe, you know, other entities want more than Putin wants, which is, I mean, if you want to look at an example, look at no further than Europe and see what Putin supposedly is, how do you call it, accused of wanting to do. Other people are way ahead in the race, all right? So Putin is way back there. He didn't even warm up to start. And these guys are about, I don't know, 55 miles in front of him and full speed going, all right? So until Putin warms up, puts his pants on and goes ready and put his cleats or whatever those are called for track, called differently, this guy is not going to catch up with those. So they don't allow Putin even to warm up, let's put it this way, which is fine. But that tells you a little different story of how really things, how things are really ran around this world. So those Cubans must be crazy, and obviously the Cuban government cooperating with dictator Lukashenko, obviously they are bad by definition. You can't do that. It can't be anything else but that. Do not look further. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.